Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Briggs,
And Ms. Lemons.
and we're here to make a video. It's our very first video, so cut us some slack if things aren't perfect, to kind of show you how the Mystery Mix lab will work. Our very first lab in our chemistry unit. Stuff you're going to need for this, right off the bat, is you're going to need your science notebook, and you're going to need a pencil. You're also going to need worksheets that are titled Mystery Mix Lab and the white substance observation sheet. Let's go ahead and get started once you have those things. First, let's talk about our learning targets. Our first one is kind of an important one, that I can follow lab procedures to produce reliable results and data which can be analyzed to form a conclusion.
I can describe and recognize evidence of the occurrence of a chemical reaction.
Also, I can use data and observations I've gathered to make a conclusion backed up by evidence. And this all leads to our guiding question, which is, what are all the different substances in our universe made of, and how are those substances formed? So, the goal in this lab relates to that in this way. We want to find out what is in the mystery mix. The mystery mix is a mix of two safe white powders. We don't know what those powders are. We just know they were mixed together 50-50 and put into these vials. What we're going to do is perform some tests on the mystery mix and observe the mystery mix to try to figure out what those powders are. Let's talk about setup. The first thing we should set up is the notebook. First, grab the instructions for your notebook. Cut them out if you need to. Paste them in. And then, if you need to, pop some holes in it, make any adjustments you need so that you can put this back into your binder.
Next, grab the sheet that says Mystery White Substance Observations. Note that it is two-sided. So as you glue this in, you're going to need to make a flap so that you can use both sides. Put some glue along the bottom of the back side. Paste this down into your notebook and fold in the excess.
Once you're ready, you should have a notebook that looks like this, where you have your instructions on one side and you have your observation flap on the other. If it doesn't look exactly like this, it's okay, as long as you can easily get to your instructions, easily get to your observations, and it all looks neat and organized so you can use it. Okay, let's talk about our dry observations. So here's what you should have. Each group should have some stuff that is shared. Okay? It is used by both pairs of people at the table. Stuff that's used by everyone at the table. Those things are a ruler, a vial of the mystery mix, and a handy sheet of helpful words and phrases for recording your observations.
Each pair of students should have a magnifier, a petri dish, a sheet of black, and a sheet of white construction paper.
Okay, let's talk about step 1. For part 1, you need to put 2 level spoonfuls of the mixture into your petri dish. This is what a level spoonful looks like.
Note the levelness.
Yeah, nice and flat, not heaped up and nasty. This is good. This is what we want. This is what we don't want.
Note the lack of levelness.
Note the lack of levelness. Sorry, first time we're doing this. We got a big heap of stuff. You're going to get a really weird result with that. Then put those 2 level spoonfuls into your Petri dish. It's also important that you do not taste the sample. Never taste the sample. Bad stuff will happen. Now it's time to make the observations. Okay, we wanted to observe our observations. It helps to observe them on a black sheet of paper so that the white granules show up really, really well. If we were looking at a darker colored powder, we might want to put it on white paper so that it shows up well in contrast. Then, use your magnifier to get a better look at what those grains look like.
Use both parts of your magnifier so that you can look at different levels of magnification. Look for things like different textures or sizes, and this is where your ruler could become handy.
All right, so what you're going to do then is after you've made your observations and looked it over, or while you're making your observations, use your helpful words and phrases to fill out your white substance observation. You're going to put in mystery mix as the common name, and note that there is no chemical name written on your vial and no chemical formula. We don't know what it is yet. Okay? And what exactly are we going to put on there? Well, we're not going to tell you, because that would be cheating. These have to be your observations, guys. Okay? So, we're going to give you an example. For example, I'm going to do an observation of some instant coffee. I start by putting those 2 level spoonfuls of the instant coffee on my paper, or in my Petri dish. And I put it on white paper in this case so that the grains would show up better. Here we have my setup. I have my ruler handy, I have my Petri dish, and I have my helpful words and phrases. So now I have to decide how I'm going to make those observations. What am I going to write down? Well, first I'm going to put in the common name, which is instant coffee. And in my diagram, I'm going to put down what I see. And what we don't want is somebody just making a bunch of little dots here and just saying, oh, that's my diagram, that's what I see. That doesn't tell me anything. I'm going to show kind of what I'm seeing here. I notice that there is a fine powder here, but also these like clumps of the powder all gathered together. And they're not even, so I'm going to draw maybe a few clumps here on the paper to show that they are different sizes, different shapes, and then I'm going to surround that with maybe a fine powder. And that would illustrate kind of what I'm going for here. Anything to add, Miss Lemons?
That's stunningly beautiful work, Mr. Briggs.
Thank you. Now for colors, I'm going to try to describe this probably with a couple of descriptive words. The first one is the actual color here. And the actual color of my coffee here is brown. But brown doesn't really tell me everything. Is it brown and clear? Is it brown and shiny? Is it brown and dull? Is it brown and what? Well, let's see here. I have this great word here that says opaque. Light does not shine through it. So I might say it's brown, that it is opaque, that it is dull. You know, it's not shiny. And the texture of this, I kind of want to say it's clumpy. Oh, spelling that wrong. Clumpy. That it is a powder, kind of powdery, and maybe fine in detail. Okay? And when it comes to the grain sizes, well, I might put down that, the clumps here are about 1 millimeter. And that the particles are like 1/2 millimeter or less. But I should be able to read this description and have a very clear idea of what this powder looks like. From your description, I should be able to pick up a vial and say, yep, that's what he's talking about. Anything else to add, Miss Lemons?
No.
Okay. Let's see. When you're done with that, we're going to move on to your wet observations. You can pause this video if you need to until you get all your observations down. All right. First thing you need to do is the setup.
Before you start your wet observations, find your white substance observation sheet, flip it up so that you can see the notebook paper beneath it. On that notebook paper, you're going to make a T-chart with the title that says Mystery Mix Wet Observations. On one side of the T-chart, it'll say diagram, and on the other, it will say describe.
Here's a more close-up look at what needs to be on there. Go ahead and pause this if you need to. All right. Now, it's important to note that this next step here is a shared activity. So both pairs of people need to be done. The whole table works on this. So it's important that you don't rush the other group if they're still getting their observations down. It's also important to not waste time because the other group is waiting for you. So make sure both of you have really good observations down and you're ready to proceed with the wet observation when you're ready. All right, it's also important to note here that right here we have 2 level spoonfuls of powder in this group, 2 level spoonfuls of powder in that group. We are going to combine them and put 4 inside our beaker. If you are starting with the wet observation, okay, you did the dry observation one day and a wet observation a new day, go ahead and just put 4 scoops right into the beaker.
Would those scoops be level, Mr. Briggs?
Those scoops would have to be very level. We don't want them heaping. We want a nice level, levelly scoopage.
Good, so we don't want a really weird reaction, you're saying?
Yeah, we want to make sure we're very precise with this. Our results should look like everybody else's. All right, and here we are combining the 2 scoops in there so that we end up having a total of 4 scoops inside our beaker. Then it helps to take that beaker and kind of push it to one side. Why do we do that, Miss Lemons?
We do that so that all the powder is gathered in one area so that we can get a better reaction.
Okay. Then we check our temperature. How do we check the temperature? Well, we don't have, using thermometers and things like that, it's kind of tricky. So we're going to use a temperature sensor that everybody has, your skin.
We're checking the temperature of the powder before we test for a reaction, and you'll eventually test the temperature after you've added water and seeing any reaction that occurs.
Yep, just set the beaker on your hand and decide, has it gotten warmer or has it gotten colder or has there been no real change? But only do that as we start the reaction, which we're going to do now. So to start your reaction, add just 1 drop of water to the powder. How many drops?
Just one.
Okay, I'm just double checking again. How many?
One.
Okay, 3.
Not 3. One.
Okay, we add 1 drop. And we do not stir it. We do not shake it. We just put the drop of water on the powder. All right. So once again, we're not shaking, we're not stirring. We just add 1 drop and only 1 drop. And then observe what happens. So here's what we're looking for and what we're going to want to record when we look at the chemical reaction. First, is it bubbling? And when it bubbles, should we write like it just fizzed or it just bubbled, Ms. Lemons?
I don't think so. That's kind of lame.
Yeah, I think we should have things like, you know, are they big bubbles or are they small bubbles? Are the bubbles like really dense and packed in? Are they spread out? Do they last a long time or did it kind of just fizz and then go away right away?
Like I wish Taylor Swift would?
No, she's a treasure and she will last forever. But
Like a cheap treasure you can buy with a quarter?
we're going to move on. We're getting off task now.
All right.
Okay, we also shouldn't write down, it did nothing, okay? Instead, nothing ever does nothing in chemistry. Instead, say something like, well, the white powder dissolved, it disappeared in the water. Or did it sink to the bottom? Or did it form clumps? Don't just say nothing. And also, look for any other signs of chemical reactions that might have occurred. And remember that list of stuff that we wrote in our notebook about different chemical reactions, things like change in color, sound, smell. We want to keep our eyes open for those too.
Is it going to explode?
Probably not.
Aww.
But what it does do is it prepares us for kind of how to behave in a lab. And eventually, we get to move on to explosions later in chemistry.
Cool.
Yep. Just keep your eyes on the prize. The prize is explosions. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen. What we're going to do is after you've added that first drop, slowly add 1 drop at a time. Add a drop, watch for a reaction. When the reaction is stopped, add another. Don't just go drop, 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 drop. Do drop, what happened? Has it stopped? Add another drop. And so on. If you end up getting 5 drops with absolutely no reaction, chances are the reactions are over. It's not going to change. You're just going to get a watery mess. So after 5 drops with no reaction, just stop. And then make sure to fill out your observation. How would you describe any change in color that occurred? How would you describe any sounds it might have made? Was it a bang? Was it a fizz? Was it a popping noise? What kinds of smells were there? Okay? And once again, don't put your face over it and just go, just waft it toward your face. Does it smell stinky? Does it smell sour? You don't have to get all up in it. And once again, you should be putting it on your palm of your hand or the top of your hand to kind of check, is it getting warmer, is it getting colder, or no change in temperature. Okay? And then maybe diagram your chemical reaction. How would I describe, how would I diagram a chemical reaction, Ms. Lemons?
You might draw what it looked like from a bird's eye point of view. What did you see happen in your beaker?
Okay.
So I might draw pictures of bubbles if it bubbled. I might draw pictures of the powder sitting in the bottom of the beaker with liquid there. and nothing much else happening.
Okay. Would it be helpful maybe to do a before and after picture, or?
You could consider a before and after picture. That might be a very good idea, Mr. Briggs.
Fantastic. Okay. Then finally, once you're done with your reaction, once you've gotten everything written out, and make sure you don't rush this part. Don't rush to clean up. Just keep an eye on the clock. You want to make sure you don't throw anything out before you're done with it. We need to clean up. And there's a proper way to clean up chemical stuff. The first step is we go to the sink, we pour our mixture out. We then use the sink to rinse out our beaker. Be really, really careful with the faucet. The water pressure here at Toki can be kind of wacky. We don't want to make a big mess. You are responsible for any cleanup and any spillage that you create. Just a little trickle of water is all you're going to need to rinse out your beaker.
After you've rinsed the beaker, get some paper towel, dry it out, and save that paper towel. You can use it to wipe out the Petri dishes that have a little powder residue left inside them. When you're done with that, throw away your towel and regather all your materials.
All right. And finally, what you should be left with is a nice clean beaker and a couple of nice, really clean Petri dishes. Make sure to return your area to its original state. You want to make sure that all the chemicals are put away properly, that your magnifiers and any tools you have are put away. You want to make sure everything is better than you found it so that the next group can take part in this experiment as well. All right. Thanks a whole lot. This has been fun making this video. Hope we did a good job.